I polled my audience and 92% of you said you always or sometimes feel like you are never good enough. This is so crushing. Believing that you're never good enough can contribute to depression and anxiety. So we're gonna break it down in a way that won't make you feel like a failure for feeling like a failure. And we're gonna explore some ways that we can work through this. But first, let me tell you a story about a couch. I promise it's relevant. Okay, so last year, Ryan and I bought a new couch for the first time in our lives. So previous to that, we've always bought couches used from the classifieds, and we just took our chances. But I guess now that we're like 40, we thought we should buy a new couch. So we picked out a couch from Costco, and we rented a truck, and we drove it home, and then we had to figure out how to get it into our house. It was like 300 pounds, maybe it was more than that. And it was in this huge box, like 4 feet by like 7 feet. And the box had handles, and between the two of us, we could like barely lift it. So we tried to get it in through the door from the garage, but that door was too narrow. So then we tried to get it through the front door, and that door was wider, and it fit. But then our hallway turns 90 degrees, and we couldn't get it through the turn. Remind you of anything? Yeah, so it did not feel like a sitcom in the moment. We're like sweating, I have a migraine, and we are like heaving this enormous box all over the place and trying to like twist it and turn it. And okay, I promise, this has something to do with feeling like you're never good enough. Okay, so then we try flipping it like vertical to try to get it around that turn, and all this time, we just keep it in this huge box because it has these handles, and we're afraid that if we take it out of the box, we won't have anything firm to grip, just like the slippery edge of couches. So finally, we give up. I was exhausted, Ryan was frustrated, we may have argued a little bit, and we talked about just taking the dumb thing back to Costco. So finally, I say, like, gosh, let's just take it out of the box. So we open up the box, and lo and behold, the freaking couch is literally in 6 pieces that click together, and they're like 20 pounds each. I don't know. They're easy to carry individually. Like once we unpacked it, it was pretty easy to manage. So feeling never good enough is so big, it's so heavy, it's so scary, and no one taught us what to do with these thoughts, and we're kind of afraid to take them out of the box because maybe we won't be able to handle them. But the truth is, when we open them up, when we break them down into small pieces, we can like work through them. Like with support, we can totally handle them. So when we do this kind of work in therapy, a lot of times I hear people say, man, why didn't I do this sooner? It wasn't as bad as I thought. So today, let's do this with the belief that you're never good enough. And maybe we can keep you from getting a migraine and sweating profusely. Okay, so to deal with this harmful belief, we have to start by getting specific. Never good enough for what? If you don't clarify what this imaginary finish line is, you'll probably feel like you're never reaching it. All right, so let's break down the first one. Other people are better than me. Like everyone else seems happy, but I'm not. And you're basing your worth on comparison. So compared to other people, I'm not rich enough, happy enough, well-traveled enough. I will never be better than all the people at all the things. So the internal rules that I'm following have set me up for a lose-lose. I can literally never win. So it's true, comparison is the thief of joy. It's outsourcing your worth to others. You decide that other people hold this imaginary ruler to determine if you're good enough or not. Now, there are 2 modern challenges that make this extra tough, which is self-improvement media and marketing. So self-improvement media should be helpful, right? But honestly, every time I watch a bunch of how to be a better parent videos on Instagram, I simultaneously learn a bunch of stuff, and I also start to feel bad about myself as a parent. Social media shows us others' facades, and it's easy to believe that we aren't good enough in comparison to the 59 seconds that they do let us see. Okay, the second silent but deadly modern challenge is marketing. So I'm talking about advertisements of any kind. The goal of marketing is to sell products by convincing us that there is something we lack. Even news and educational listicles send the message that if you only follow these 5 steps, then you can be happier, skinnier, faster, richer, stronger, etc. They basically want to make you feel like that dummy at the beginning of the infomercial who drops everything. Marketers show us what other people have that we don't. Research shows that children who are exposed to more marketing feel unhappier, and we adults are not immune to this. So, if comparison is the root of feeling never good enough, there are 2 steps to take. So first, if you want to survive in this modern world, you have to set limits on your media exposure. Be very conscious of the effect that marketing has on you. Overall, it's just wise to limit your time on social media and to carefully curate and unfollow content that isn't uplifting for you. Unfortunately, we can't throw all the marketing into the ocean, so you might have to just start with setting some limits on your phone, and don't rely on willpower because we all kind of stink at that. The Atomic Habits guy had his assistant change the password on his social media at the beginning of the work week so he could get stuff done. And I've deleted Instagram off of my phone again. Deleted. And I actually really like this guy's video on how he made his smartphone a dumb phone. Okay, moving on. Second, what if we break the comparison ruler? What if good enough no longer has anything to do with whether other people succeed, and instead you get super clear on your own values, what you want your life to be about? I've created a downloadable workbook for you to figure out the kind of life you really care about living. And then every time you catch yourself comparing yourself to others, you can shift your attention back to the kind of person that you want to be. Each day or each week, you can take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, I value being creative or loving or hardworking. Did I live that way today? And then you take action to be that person. Okay, number 2, the second chunk of feeling like you're never good enough is perfectionism. But it's often subtle. Maybe you don't think you're a perfectionist, but let's look at some of the sneaky ways that perfectionism shows up. Maybe you feel like a complete failure if you made a mistake. You might believe that you need to be flawless in social settings to be approved of, and by the way, that is not possible. Or maybe you believe that you should have already figured out most of life's problems. Like, why am I struggling with this? Other people have it figured out. Or here's another one a lot of people feel. I'm just not a good enough blank. Daughter or son or spouse or parent. We take our honest desires to show up for others and treat them well, which is good. But then we take it one step further to, I must be perfect to be valued. Otherwise, I'm not good enough. It's like this idea that, like, if I'm not perfect, I'm failing as a person. So, dear perfectionist, please hear me. This is a belief, not a reality. It's something we construct with words that is oddly comforting, but deeply wounding. And it's not truthful. It might feel true, but it's not helpful in any way. So the reality of relationships is that we bring our flaws and our vulnerability to them. And that creates opportunities to make relationships stronger. Living together, learning together, and being with other humans necessitates that at times we're gonna offend someone, or we're gonna miscommunicate, or we're gonna make mistakes. So interestingly enough, research shows that good enough parenting is actually better for kids than parents who strive to be perfect. Like, there is research on this. Making mistakes and making amends is part of building meaningful relationships. And we have to accept our flaws as part of progress and connection. Perfectionism also looks like withdrawing from people and opportunities because we're afraid of messing up. So I remember one time, like 20 years ago, I was at a primitive skills gathering where experts taught these ancient skills. And an instructor reached out to me and asked if I wanted to learn pine needle basketry. And I said no because I was too embarrassed that I wouldn't be good at it. So I missed out on that chance to learn. I can tell that I'm healthier now because I do stuff a lot more often that I'm just not good at. I embrace discomfort and I'm learning a bunch of new things. So, assuming that you want to keep developing as a person, instead of the faulty belief that, like, I have to be good enough first and then I can engage, how about instead say, I will engage as a work in progress. I'll get good at making repairs. Perfectionism tells you that you've just got to be better and improve yourself and then you'll be good enough. But a healthier approach is to increase your capacity to be vulnerable, to allow yourself to feel and to engage and to mess up, and then get really good at tolerating discomfort when you show up in a real way. So this is a goal that you can actually achieve. So with this one, I want you to try a little experiment. I want you to start questioning these lying little perfectionistic thoughts, and then go out there and do something that's good enough instead of perfect. Bring a gift to a friend that's totally adequate instead of presenting it like in a perfect way. Call someone when you don't have anything to say. Ask a girl out on a date that you think you might get rejected by. Turn in some homework that's decent but not perfect. I would love to hear from you guys about what happens when, instead of protecting yourself by withdrawing from life, you engage on an imperfect level. You could tell me about it in the comments if you'd like. Okay, number 3. Okay, so the third reason why a lot of people feel like they're never good enough is because they haven't arrived yet. So it's like saying, oh, I haven't reached my goals yet. Saying, I'm not good enough for an Olympic weightlifting gold medal, that might be true. But saying, I'm never good enough, like as a person, is a self-justifying, sneaky, lying little thought. That's like saying that an airplane isn't good enough because it's still flying towards the destination instead of having already arrived. There's nothing wrong with a plane, it's just in the middle of its journey. So this aspect of feeling never good enough is really about, can you tolerate the process, the journey of becoming without needing to have arrived? So make your good enough about the process, not the end result. You're a person who's learning and growing instead of a person who has everything figured out. It's like making sure that your plane is mechanically sound and moving in the right direction instead of making sure that your plane is staying in the hangar all the time. Okay, so for example, if you want to run a successful business, instead of focusing on making $1 million, you focus on, am I working hard? Am I learning from others? Am I enjoying the creative process? And if you're progressing, if you're moving in the right direction, then you are good enough. You make your identity about the process of growth instead of whether or not you've arrived. Okay, so number 4 is this. This one's kind of heavy. So number 4 is stuff I learned that was wrong, but I keep doing out of habit. So this often sounds like not everyone likes me or approves of me. Someone on my channel commented, whenever I'm feeling not good enough, I ask myself, not good enough for whom? Like, who am I trying to impress? And why does that matter to me? I try to challenge the thought and list the ways that I am good enough. So when my clients feel like they're never good enough, it's common when we see that, when we work on it, when we unpack it, we see that it's really about getting approval from everyone. They can't tolerate it if someone doesn't like them or approve of them. And then they think, oh, perhaps I have to change myself to be perfect for them. And again, this is outsourcing your sense of self, and it's a game that's impossible to win. And really, do you want your self-worth to be determined by your high school bully who's become an internet troll in his mom's basement? I don't think so. So let's look where this comes from, and then let's flip the script. So sometimes this comes from messaging from our parents. They have their own biases, their flaws, and their trauma. Surprising, I know. They may be judgmental, critical, demanding, or have impossible expectations. Maybe they expect you to fulfill their dream. And as children, we desperately strive for approval, and we fear disappointing them. So it can hurt so much when we feel like we're never good enough. So what do we do if our parents made us feel that we weren't good enough? I like what Eleanor Roosevelt said. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. As adults, it's our responsibility to examine the messages we've been sent and then ask ourselves, do I agree with this? Sure, they may have reinforced that messaging over and over again, and they're accountable for that. But you're responsible for what you continue to believe, what you continue to feed. So the goal here is to shift your evaluation of your worth from being external, what other people think about you, or what other people say about you, or what other people tell is worthwhile, to internal. And like, I realize this is a big topic, right? This is one for at least a handful of therapy sessions, or at the very least its own dedicated video. So we'll do a deep dive in the future. But for now, if you catch yourself thinking, I'm never good enough, you could choose to notice that thought and try on something different. So here we're talking about breaking these mental habits that we have. It might sound like one of these alternate phrases. I know what kind of person I'm trying to be, and I will keep working on that. I'm learning and growing it every day, and that's good enough. God's grace makes me good enough. I release the need for approval from others. I focus on progress, not perfection. I embrace my uniqueness. Making mistakes is part of being human. I accept myself as a whole. Flaws and strengths are a beautiful part of who I am. Life is a journey, not a destination. Okay, so what would you do differently if you believed that you were good enough as a human? Comment below. I want you to visualize this and comment below. Would you stop trying to convince someone to love or accept you? Would you drop an act? Would you take more risks? Okay, I've got one last thought before we wrap things up. Marianne Williamson said, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Feeling never good enough is an almost universal fear that we humans hold. But an even greater fear is that we are amazing, that we have immense potential. You might cling to the crappy armor of believing that you're never good enough because it's a feeble form of self-protection from the potential disappointment of trying hard or being vulnerable in relationships. You don't need to carry this anymore. You can feel good enough as you practice vulnerability, strive to live your values, and learn a little bit every day. Okay, so that was a lot. Let's review real quick. When you say, I'm never good enough, do you mean everyone else seems perfectly happy, but I'm not? Let's shift to values and an internal metric instead of external. Okay, if you say, I can't perform without making a mistake, focus on progress instead of perfection. Mistakes are part of learning. If you say, I'm not reaching my goals, shift your focus to your direction instead of outcomes. And if you say, I can't get everyone to like me, including maybe your parents, accept this. Not everyone's gonna like you. Shift your attention to what you give, what you put out, instead of what you get. Shift your worth to your internal values instead of external perceptions. And most important of all, don't hide behind the fear of never being good enough. Allow yourself to be vulnerable by believing that you have immense potential to do good in the world. Okay, thanks for spending this time with me. If you would like to spend time with me in a live webinar every month, as well as getting access to all of my courses, check out the link in the description to join the Therapy in a Nutshell membership. And remember to share in the comments how your life would be different if you knew deep in your soul that you are good enough. Okay, take care.